The NFL season is back, and today is the day. So, I'm going to be making sure I finish this top 20 before the season's out. So, I need to get this, as I'm recording this right now, out within like an hour and a half. So, here we go. Top 20 players of 2020, in my opinion. Make sure to go watch the other episodes if you haven't already. By the way, if I'm going to make a picks video for who I'm predicting this week, if I don't get it out in time, I'm predicting the Chiefs to beat the Texans. So if I am wrong, you can put that on the record. So, with that being said, here's the top 20 players, in my opinion, of 2020. Number 20, we have Travis Kelce. I have him as the second best tight end. You could make a debate that maybe he deserves to be number one, but I think Kittle is by far the best tight end. But don't forget about Kelce here. I think he really had the opportunity after Gronk retired the first time to take that spotlight. He did, and then Kittle came along. But I really think you need to credit Travis Kelce because I think he's one of the key pieces to that Chiefs offense. Honestly, even more than Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill will make more splashy plays, but the safe player that Mahomes is going to go to when he needs it most is Travis Kelce. So he lands at number 20. At number 19, we have Chandler Jones, and Chandler Jones has been a stud for a long time, even when he was on the Patriots, but obviously was traded to the Cardinals, and he's just been balling out. And he had such a great season last year, leading the NFL in sacks, I believe with 19 and a half. Absolute stud out at the edge rush position. And he's actually going to be able to play more of his natural position. Kind of, if you've seen Brett Coleman's videos, Terrell Suggs was kind of terrible in coverage. So he kind of took the role from Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones obviously had a lot of sacks, but he could have gotten even more if he was playing less off-ball linebacker. So this year, I think he's going to be playing pure pass rusher, so we should have another good year from Chandler Jones. And number 18 is B-Wags, Bobby Wagner, and he deserves a lot of credit. He's been great for a few years now, stealing the draft. He definitely is number one linebacker now with Luke Kuechly retired. He deserves that credit. When you look at the Legion of Boom, and they've obviously disbanded, but Bobby Wagner's still there. So an absolute stud on the defense. I think if you want any off-ball linebacker in football, you have to take Bobby Wagner. So he's an absolute stud on defense, and he deserves recognition as a top 20 player. At number 17, I have Drew Brees here. Kind of just consistent right now. I wouldn't say has been on upward or downward trend, to be honest, in the past few years. I don't think he's regressed very much. So I have him here at 17, which, as a hint here, puts him as the 6th quarterback. I may have ranked him higher in my quarterback video. I think that as a pure quarterback, he's higher, but I am putting a lot of factors into it. It's how well the player I think is going to play this year, as well as special abilities. It's also you look at the players above, I'll have reasons for why they're above. As a pure quarterback, though, you definitely could make the debate that Drew Brees is still a top 4 or so quarterback, but with the other talent there, I have him at number 6 quarterback. But he's an absolute stud, and I think he'll continue to be really good this year. At number 16 is Von Miller, and unfortunately I made these slides before the injury. I really hope he's not out for the season. I've heard mixed reports that he was out for the season, and that he wasn't. Maybe, he might be able to come back, but definitely going to be out for a while. So we're definitely hoping that he can come back healthy because he is a star player. I definitely think he isn't maybe the best pass rusher anymore as in 2015, but I feel like people now are sleeping too much on him. You can't have him above like a Khalil Mack or other players like that, but you can't sleep on him and put personally, if people are putting TJ Watt and other young pass rushers above him, I just don't understand that. I think he still deserves credit, and it'll be interesting. I think we're going to see the impact. Bradley Chubb is good, Jarrell Casey's great in the middle, but I think we're really going to see a huge impact for the Broncos. So I think honestly he will almost prove his value this season by not being there. You'll really see the difference on that defense. So he deserves recognition here as an almost top 15 player. Which, speaking of Khalil Mack, this may be a little controversial take. This is kind of low, maybe. But I personally think he had kind of a down year last year. I don't think you can put all the blame on that, though. I definitely think he's going to bounce back. But I just want to see him perform super, super good one more time in a Bears uniform. For sure, to put him in, back in that top 10 range. I think he's an absolute stud, though. definitely deserves, depending on if you consider Aaron Donald a pass rusher, kind of a nose tackle, he's the best pure pass rusher in the league, no question. And if we're doing a draft on who we're taking first, this guy's going in the top 10. Like, right now, if the NFL restarted and did a fantasy draft, he's going top 10. So, as I mentioned in the last video, for example, you'll see 2 running backs in the top 10. For sure, one of them I probably wouldn't take if there was a fantasy draft, for example, in the top 10. But this is based on how well the players do at their job. And I think Khalil Mack, definitely the best pure edge rusher. But I just want to see a little bit more one more time in a Bears uniform. So if he has another good season this year, I think he'll definitely make his way into maybe the top 12, maybe even top 10 range. At number 14 is Deshaun Watson. Now, this is interesting. Like in my top 25 quarterbacks video, he was number 4, but in the top 100 here, he's number 5. I definitely kind of am trying to mix it up from an overall player standpoint, but I definitely believe that Deshaun Watson is very good, and some people may not think he's a top 15 player yet, but I definitely do. He had 2 moments for me last year where he proved his worth, and I really think that he showed his clutch gene that some people aren't talking about enough. He obviously plays tonight, but really, I had 2 moments. I'll just say them quick here. When he literally was kicked in the eye by a Raider defender and still made a throw for a touchdown to Darren Fells, who's just like an average tight end. So he just had that play, and then also to be able to break the sack against Buffalo and then throw it off to his running back there. Definitely just that clutch gene, I think, is there. Definitely one of the best college quarterbacks as well of this past decade. So he deserves recognition here as a top 15 player. I personally think he is right now, and obviously in the future he'll be even higher. So for right now, he is a top 15 player for me. So at number 13, I have Aaron Rodgers, and I think you can't write him off just because of last year. He's thrown to literally pretty much after Devontae Adams, nobody. I mean, you might as well put any other player on the field except for Jimmy Graham. I'm kind of kidding there. He's obviously not that bad, but like he was not very good. They've gotten rid of Geronimo Allison, who I've heard a lot as well, that, he's not very good for Packers. So he has been throwing, besides to Devontae, kind of young players that want to develop. And I think he is getting buried behind these other guys because of that. But his clutch gene is still there. I was talking about it with Deshaun Watson. I have him even higher here because I think his clutch gene is even, for right now, better than Deshaun Watson. Even not all time, obviously, there's more instant, but I think right now, if I'm looking for a final drive, I'm still taking Aaron Rodgers. It's very close, but I'm taking Aaron Rodgers over Deshaun Watson if I'm looking to make that final play of the game. So definitely, I think that he is, once again, needs the recognition because he is being buried behind these other quarterbacks. Maybe because his stats aren't good, or because his team didn't win the Super Bowl and that type of thing in, 10 years. But he definitely, I think, is a top 5. And for me, he is a top 4 quarterback. At number 12 is Tyreek Hill. I think obviously you can have the debate on whether him or Travis Kelce should be higher. I have Tyreek Hill higher, but that is definitely a debate you could make a case for. Like I said earlier, if Patrick Mahomes is looking for a safe play, he's going to throw it to Kelce. But if you're on the final drive of the game, I think that Tyreek Hill with his speed is just game changer. We saw it in the Super Bowl. Also, can be a great returner. Obviously, McCole Hardman has gotten a little bit of that role, but I think when you put Tyreek back there as a returner, absolute stud, got paid for a reason, and he's just spectacular to watch, and free entertainment to watch him play. He's so fast and just is electric, so he is a top 12 player for me. Not the best pure receiver, that's what I'm also talking about here. He's not as good at route running as DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Julio, but he still comes in at number 12 for me. And just missing the top 10 is DeAndre Hopkins. Absolute star trade for Arizona. I mean, they might as well give the Steve Keim general manager, just pay him the whole franchise. I mean, that's quite a move. Well, maybe it's partly Bill O'Brien making the terrible move, but definitely just an absolute stud. Can make amazing catches. I still remember, do you guys remember the tip pass against Pittsburgh a few years ago. We also had the one where he literally caught it, did an in-between the legs move while he was catching. It got called back for a penalty. But this dude has big playability. I'm really excited to see what he can do with Kyler. I think he's going to light it up this season. They paid him for a reason, that extension. So he's with Kyler for another 5 years. So definitely needs to be up there as a top receiver. And then number 10 is Julio Jones. Now he is, don't worry, we'll stop the running receivers for a bit. That's a hint there that Michael Thomas is higher, not number 9. But he is just, I think you could debate he's even better than Michael Thomas. You really could. I can see that. Like in fantasy, I'm actually in a league where somehow in 3 rounds of a PPR, I was able to get both of them and actually got Julio in the third. I needed to take a running back in the second, so I wasn't, terrible there. But like, I think these two are the top 2. I mean, Hopkins is super good, but to me, Julio is definitely somebody that some people still think he's number 1, but others I feel like he's, down lower. But he needs to be a top 10 player. He is. If you don't have him top 10, I can't really understand that. I mean, maybe, if you have guys, maybe a quarterback or Khalil Mack above him, I guess maybe. But to me, you can't slide him much far down. He deserves the credit here, and definitely just as maybe the pure all-around receiver. I mean, I'll say he definitely, people joke about the slants with Michael Thomas. I think that Julio's a much better overall route runner, but I think that he needs to be your number 2 receiver on a list, and I think for me, he should always be in the top 10. Number 9, Derrick Henry. So this is, once again, I'm going to bring it up here. If let's say you're doing a fantasy draft, the NFL restarted. You are not taking Derrick Henry with the 9th pick. The running back is not that valuable unless you are the player that will be revealed later who has great potential in the receiving game. But overall, as a player, I have him in the top 10. He's single-handedly, Ryan Tannehill was great. I've been a Ryan Tannehill fan since 2014. He was actually my favorite player from 2014 to about 2018 when I thought maybe he was out of juice. But so I am a Ryan Tannehill guy, have been for a long time. But Derrick Henry won 2 games for the Titans single-handedly in the playoffs. Ryan Tannehill sparked the fire that allowed them to make the playoffs, but Derrick Henry carried that team for 2. He literally threw a pass touchdown against the Ravens. So he deserves credit. He's got the best stiff arm. It's crazy how fast he is for his build. He just is outstanding. He has got the best trucking ability. He's the best pure, you need 1 yard, and you need to give it to a running back. You're giving it to Derrick Henry. You do. I'll talk about it. I've seen Christian McCaffrey many times at the 1 yard line just get absolutely stuffed because he is not a pure power runner. He had so much else to the game, which we'll talk about later because that's, once again, a hit that he is in the top 8. But Derrick Henry might be the best pure power back in the league. So I have him at number 9. At number 8 is Michael Thomas. And yes, you can make the case, you see all the memes that his play is quick slant. That's his play. Yes, he catches a lot of slants, but I think he still is a top receiver. He can burn you deep. He definitely has a lot of potential here, and I think he's continuing to rise. I don't think, for example, in Madden, he should not be a 99, in my opinion. That should not be there. He should be, maybe a 98 or 97. I took him in 2 out of my 4 fantasy leagues, so definitely I'm a believer in him this season for fantasy purposes because of, him getting all the catches. So you could make the case that Julio has better route running or even DeAndre Hopkins. But for me, I think Michael Thomas right now is the best receiver. And I don't think you can necessarily bring him down from that, even if he had a bad season. I mean, I think he's not going to have a bad season, obviously. That's why I picked him. But I definitely think he's the best receiver right now. And I think if he can develop his route running, he won't have to run slants all the time. So I think he's got a lot of potential. So for me, he's the number 8 player in the league. At number 7 is the people's tight end, George Kittle. Definitely, people have called him the new Gronk. Gronk is back now. But George Kittle, absolute stud, playmaker, fits that offense well. I'm going to say, they had Emmanuel Sanders, but I think San Francisco needed that number one wide receiver to fit that offense, and I think that George Kittle, obviously he's not a wide receiver, but he needed that number one receiving target for Jimmy Garoppolo. So he is your security blanket. He's gonna make all the catches. Very powerful. Can truck a bit. He's got a lot of skills to bring to the table. Also a great blocker. He really adds to the running game, and that's what makes him super good for San Francisco too. They run the ball a lot, so he adds to that as well. So he's overall the best tight end you could not make the case in both blocking and receiving. So he lands at number 7. At number 6 is Christian McCaffrey, and what just puts him over the top is his skills as a receiver. He's basically a running back that can play slot receiver as well for you. So he just adds a lot to the whole entire offense. I'm excited to see what he'll do with Teddy and the Panthers this season again. That's why he's the consensus number 1 pick in fantasy. He's an absolute stud. Once again, as I said earlier, maybe as a pure running back, you'd rather have Derrick Henry, but when you add the receiving ability in, it's not even close. Christian McCaffrey is the best. And when we also talk about the fantasy draft, this is a guy I would take in the top 10 because he's basically a running back and receiver. So I really think he is probably the best skill position player, not quarterback. So out of any player that's a running back, wide receiver, tight end, I would say McCaffrey deserves to be the number 1 spot. So he is number 6 for me on my list. And number 5 is Stefon Gilmore. Stepped his game up last season to prove he is the number 1 corner in football, and it's not even close. My next highest corner was in the 20s. So definitely the best. You could make the case kind of, besides D-line, beside the linebackers and secondaries, the best. You'll see there's one other defensive player coming. You should know who it is. He's in the thumbnail, but you'll see where he lands. But Stefon Gilmore, absolutely locked down, has been. He was in Buffalo as well. I don't think people gave him enough credit when he was in Buffalo. Comes to New England and continues to be, and it progressed into an absolute stud. So he's an outstanding player, locking down all receivers. And I remember, for example, Amari Cooper shut him down, limited him to barely anything. So he can play with the best of them and can lock down almost anybody. At number 4 is Russell Wilson. He's an absolute stud. Definitely was in the MVP conversation last year until the real MVP, ended up winning it. But definitely for 3/4 of the way through, Russell looked like the best quarterback. So Russell Wilson is a guy that he definitely, in recent memory, if the top 2 guys did not exist, he would be number 1 by far. It's kind of crazy. He's kind of like, there was Brady and Manning. If he was in that era, he'd still be number 3, maybe 4 behind Favre. Now there's 2 players as well behind him, but I feel like he has the potential, you think, to be the number 1 quarterback in the league with how well Russell Wilson plays. But unfortunately, there's a lot of good competition against him. But his deep ball is one of the best in the league. Not enough credit deserved there. He may not have the strongest arm, but his deep accuracy is dead-eye. It's one of the best in the whole league. So he deserves a lot of credit there. He's got a good connection with Lockett and Metcalf, so I'm really excited to see what he'll do this season again. So he lands at number 4. And number 3 is Lamar Jackson. So people can call him a running back. He's the Madden 21 cover athlete. But he deserves to be a top 3 player. Now, here's a disclaimer. If you watched my top 25 quarterbacks video, I had Russell above him. This is where the top 100 players come in. As a pure quarterback, Russell Wilson is better. His accuracy is much better. But as an overall player, from an offensive standpoint, Lamar adds so much. Now, I will say he's a player that you would have to build your system around. That's what the Ravens did. They brought in RG3 as the backup because he's probably the most similar Lamar player we've seen in the past 10 years. So, they built the offense around him, which is what you needed to do, and I don't know why other teams didn't take a chance on that, to be honest, but it just makes a lot of sense. So, yes, you put him in on other teams, he's not going to do as well. But if you have a system for him, like they do there in Baltimore, he's going to go crazy. That's why he won the MVP, and I expect him to do really well. I don't think he'll match his numbers from last season. Don't think he's going to be quite as good. We've seen always the decline the next season. You know, when it was Matt Ryan, next year didn't do as good. Mahomes, still great, but didn't have as good of a season last year as he did for his MVP year. So I expect a little decline, but he still is a top 3 player. And this is our top 2. At number 2, we have Aaron Donald. He's in the thumbnail. He is, you could make a case for a few years, I think he was the number 1 player in football. But right now, there's another guy that for a reason is paid the highest in history. But if that guy did not exist, he's by far the number 1 player. He may be a defensive tackle, but he adds so much to your pass rush and from a run-stopping perspective. There was a guy I think I saw on Twitter trying to make some stat up saying Aaron Donald isn't that good at stopping the run. Well, he is. Just watch the film. I don't care. That's basically creating a metric just to make Aaron Donald look bad, and I didn't know that was possible because he's so good. There are 2 players that may deserve, for example, I'll say in Madden, a 99. He's one of them. And he definitely is the best defensive player in the league. So he lands at number 2. So if the guy at number 1 didn't exist, he'd probably be number 1. And at number 1, the $500 million man himself, couldn't have seen it any other way. It's Patrick Mahomes. Do I even have to say too much? I mean, he's an absolute amazing player. I mean, that's all you can say really in a basic standpoint. He's got one of the strongest arms in the league, as well as so accurate. It's so interesting to really watch him, you know, with his baseball background as well. Make some of these sidearm throws. He's even making no-look throws. This dude is on the next level, and I'm sorry, Bears fans, but it's crazy to think that, you know, people didn't pick him. Well, not just you, Bears fans, but like 9 other teams didn't take a shot on this man, which is crazy. But I'll take credit, you know, in that draft had him below, for sure below Watson. I think I might have had him above Trubisky, to be honest. I was not very high on Mr. Trubisky. But I definitely, you know, had Watson higher. So I wasn't the biggest Patrick Mahomes fan, but definitely if you're GM, that's your job. So it's crazy to think he, you know, wasn't picked number 1 and just by anybody. So he is number 1 on this year's list. Let me know if you want me to do this again next year. I'm going to be trying to get out some different content, maybe some fantasy football maybe type of thing. We've got maybe Madden content for franchise mode. Maybe going to be rebuilding some teams, as well as maybe some, I'm thinking eventually live streams during games to kind of have my reactions. If you guys want to ask questions, I will be there, you know, to do that, and kind of just get my takes of the games going on, who's performing well, and that type of thing. So, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I know a lot of you aren't subscribed, but all you have to do is just click the subscribe button, and that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching.